clients traditionally think about their budget, and that's what they think about most of all. Sort of like we can all talk about, oh, we got to do the best thing for the planet. We got, sort of like, but they have a pot of money and they try to do what they want to do with that pot of money. Yeah. Now, when you think about circularity, it's actually trying to shift their gaze a little bit and say, look, you're going to be spending this pot of money, but you're, sort of like, you're going to get something and then that's it. It's crossed off. Job's done, effectively. But what we're saying is that with that pot of money, look at it as an investment and say, effectively, what are you going to get at the end of it? So for, say, a corporate fit out, say it's 10 years, most clients will give you a pot of money, say, we're going to design this, this is the budget, and then effectively they say, right, okay, it's all gone. They're not expecting anything back. And in some sort of ways, when you're talking about circularity, you basically say, you're going to get something back. That's the hook. That's effectively saying, it's not about what you put in, it's what you're going to get at the end of its life. And there's very few clients that actually think about residual value in any project.
I tend to be the one who picks up the phone and just asks a load of awkward questions. So I don't follow any certifications and I don't count carbon or anything like that, which I probably should. But it's just me. So I don't have the resources to kind of do all that. But I do like to pick up the phone and I do like to know exactly what's gone into everything that I'm using. And if they can't tell me, I'll usually run a mile from it and keep searching until I find something that I really can know and feel. A different thing that designers perhaps can add or offer a client is maybe to do, I'd say, radical things or some really exciting things with waste or great materials, circular materials, that instead of having a certificate at the end of it, they have all this amazing work they can talk about and it becomes a marketing tool for them. But it's something different that I think we can offer as designers as well. Say, okay, we could go down the certificate route, but also we could do these amazing things, like sort of grassroots up, find amazing people in your local community, local to the site, who are doing interesting things, making interesting things, and give them a leg up and do something visually and exciting and adding value to their brand name and giving them something else they can brag about instead.
We see a lot of fabric wasted. So, for instance, like these curtains at the end of life, or firstly how they're made to begin with. We have curtains and fabric and materials made from fashion waste. Like we have the wool that comes from an Italian fashion house. They repurpose that and they make it into a fabric that we can use. But at the end of life, if at a project, what do you do at the end of it? What do you make it? So we're trying to look into reusing it in other projects, not making people, but suggesting that they bring it along to the next place. That's the first of all. And if not, if they don't use it, kind of send it back to us so we can repurpose it into something. This is still ongoing at the moment, but into something that we can either break down and use as a filler, as a foam, as an acoustic board or something like that.
If you have a high recycled content and you are gluing it together with something nasty that then you can't use again at the end of that life, okay, then you're just elongating something for one life, which is not, it's good. It's better than it going straight to landfill, but it's still not the circular ideal. The circular ideal is pretty difficult. And, sort of like we're still thinking about this in terms of materials and everything else. But the circular ideal is that you have things in infinite loop. So effectively, you use something, you reuse it as many times as you can. Then when it's recycled, it goes back to being the original material again.
I see all interiors as temporary because I think we need to kind of zoom out and recognise the timescales of of planet Earth better. So I was forced into that way of thinking more intensively when I worked on a project called Monk, an eyewear store, who took on a lease of a 6-month to 1 year lease for a space for their first store. So we were forced to really think about how everything could come out of that space and be reused in potentially 6 months. And so we did, and it turns out they're still there, and they've signed a 5-year lease. We also had to bear that in mind as well. It's not just this, what we call a pop-up, it's actually now their flagship store. So we designed something with temporary in mind, but that also had longevity. And in all my other projects since then, I've realised that is the way that we need to think about all interiors. 6 months is a very short time scale, in the grand scheme of a human life. But 10 years, 20 years, 50 years is a blip in the time scales of our planet as well. So it's all temporary, and we must be thinking about what's going to happen at the end of that 10, 20, 50, 100 years, because it's all temporary.
Look at what you've got, number one. So you actually look around. And then probably 2 is look at available resources. Look at what's around you. And then 3 is know what you have, effectively, sort of like look, deeply look at stuff that you are using.